My coworker stole my entire identity and almost got my job too. Imagine going to apply for a loan and being told you already have 6 open credit lines you've never heard of. Then imagine discovering that someone you eat lunch with 3 times a week has been using your social security number, your address, and even your name in emails for almost a year. That happened to me. And the worst part, I almost lost my job because of it, not her. This is that story. I started my job at a mid-sized logistics company in early 2021. The team was small, maybe 18 people in my department. I was new, eager to make a good impression, and I made the mistake that a lot of new employees make. I trusted people because we were colleagues. One of those colleagues was a woman I'll call Diane. Diane was friendly in that very specific way that, looking back, was always slightly transactional. She was the one who showed me where the good coffee was, who warned me about which manager was difficult, who made me feel like I'd found an ally. We weren't close friends, but we were friendly. We had lunch together maybe once a week. I considered her someone I could trust. Here's what I didn't know about Diane. She had applied for my exact role before I was hired and had been passed over. The reason, I later found out, was that her references didn't check out. 2 of the 3 were either unreachable or gave lukewarm feedback. She needed this job badly. She had been managing a significant amount of personal debt, and somehow she had gotten access to the HR onboarding documents I'd submitted when I was hired. Documents that included my social security number, my date of birth, my home address, and my direct deposit banking information. The first sign that something was wrong came from my bank. I got a notification about a hard credit inquiry I hadn't authorized. I assumed it was a mistake, maybe something from when I'd checked rates on a car loan a few months prior. I disputed it and moved on. Then about 3 weeks later, I got a credit card in the mail for an account I had never opened. The name on the card was mine. The address was slightly different. It had my street number but the wrong apartment unit, but the name was unambiguously me. I froze. I called the credit card company immediately. They confirmed the account had been opened 2 months prior and already had a balance of nearly $3,000. I had never seen this card. I had never activated it. I had never spent a single dollar of that money. I filed a fraud report and placed a freeze on my credit. An investigator from the card company told me this was not an isolated case. I had, according to their records, 4 other credit accounts in various stages of being opened in my name over the previous 8 months. I went to pull my full credit report and found 6 accounts. Credit cards, a personal loan, even a store account. Almost $30,000 in debt in my name that I had never created. I was stunned. Who had access to my information? I racked my brain. I had been careful, or so I thought, but then I remembered something. About 6 months earlier, I'd mentioned to Diane that I had gotten a letter from my bank asking me to confirm my address. It seemed routine, but I had been confused about it, and I'd mentioned it to her in passing. She had been very interested. She had asked questions. I'd thought she was just being helpful. I was wrong. I didn't suspect Diane yet, not consciously. But I mentioned to HR that I was dealing with identity theft and asked if there was any chance my onboarding documents had been accessible to other employees. The HR manager looked uncomfortable. She said access to those files should have been restricted to herself and one other administrator. But then she went quiet for a moment, the kind of quiet that means someone is remembering something they wish they could forget. She said she'd look into it and get back to me. She got back to me 3 days later. Turns out that several months ago there had been a brief window, maybe 48 hours, where the onboarding portal had a permissions error that allowed any employee with a login to access any other employee's file. It was a software glitch. It had been patched. No one had been notified because they didn't think anyone had accessed anything they shouldn't have. But they had access logs, and when they checked them, one name showed up on my file during that window. Diane. Now, looking at a folder isn't the same as committing fraud. There could be an innocent explanation. But combined with the credit accounts, and here's the part that really shook me, an email that surfaced during HR's review. An email sent from an address very similar to mine, 1 letter off in the username, to a vendor we both worked with, signing off on a contract modification in my name. The email had been sent from a personal Gmail account that was not mine. The vendor had assumed it was me because the display name matched. Diane had been impersonating me in professional communications. Here's where it turned from a fraud story into something darker. When HR confronted Diane, she denied everything. She said the access log was a mistake, that she'd accidentally clicked on my file and closed it immediately, that she had no idea what I was talking about. She was calm, practiced, and then, and I still can't quite believe this, she counterfiled a complaint against me. She told HR that I had been harassing her, that I'd made her feel unsafe, and that she believed I was trying to get her fired because I saw her as competition. HR, to their credit, did not take the bait, but it delayed the process. It made everything more complicated. An external HR consultant was brought in, and during that review, they found something else. Diane had submitted on a professional development form that she had a graduate degree from a university that confirmed she had never attended. She had also listed a previous employer on her original application who, when contacted, had no record of her working there. She had lied about her qualifications to get the job she'd been initially passed over for, and then, when I got that job instead, she had apparently decided to take a different route. To investigators, the theory was that she had intended to build up enough of a financial trail in my name that I would face questions at work, that she could eventually use the manufactured discrepancies to cast doubt on my reputation or even get me pushed out. It was a long game, and I had almost missed it entirely. She was terminated. The police report I filed led to a criminal investigation. She was eventually charged with identity theft and fraud. I spent the next 2 years cleaning up my credit. It came back. My job was never actually in jeopardy, though it felt like it was. But $30,000 of fraudulent debt and 2 years of paperwork, all because I mentioned a bank letter to someone I thought was a friend. I want to leave you with something practical, because I think the scariest part of this story is how preventable it was. Check your credit report. Not once a year, set up alerts. Most banks offer them for free. Freeze your credit if you're not actively applying for anything. It takes 10 minutes and costs nothing. And if you are ever onboarding at a new job and they ask for sensitive documents, ask how those documents are stored and who has access. It's not a rude question. It's a smart one. I wish I had asked it.